Number 10. The kitchen. Now that you've got your appetite, let's talk about the kitchen. Major kitchens of the castle usually had to deal with providing at least 2 meals for several hundred people every day. As you can imagine, this is where the work would be put in. By a large staff too, usually in the hundreds. So you're sweaty from working and surrounded by a bunch of other blokes. Sounds pretty awful. But you didn't take into account the amount of heat. The guidelines on how to make enough food for a 2-day banquet include the chief cook having to at least have 1,000 cartloads of good dry firewood and a large barn full of coal to keep the fires going. It's spicy in the kitchen, let me tell you. Number 9. The main hall. The idea of a standing army wasn't exactly a thing during the medieval period, so what you would have is your knights or castle soldiers. And unless there was a barracks, the main hall would often convert to have a bunch of cots in it where these soldiers would sleep. It could also be where your guests might stay, and even your servants if you didn't have a room for either of them. And then it became your dining room. It was also your party room, and your courtroom. It was honestly a pretty versatile room. So much room for activity. You could probably imagine the amount of tomfoolery that happened here though. A large group of sweaty men and women after a feast, and they don't have to walk home because they are staying the night. Nice. Number 8. The pooper. The title says unholy, but this room's main purpose is to have a hole. A hole for people to sit their little keisters down on and drop the kids off. Sometimes down a nice long shaft through the castle that went straight to the cesspit or to the moat. If the moat was a room, I'd probably include it on this list because, yikes. A toilet isn't something you'd actually find in most medieval castles. There are easier places to do your business outside. The garderobe is basically a tiny little closet-sized room with a hole in it for this sole purpose. But they were also used for storage, like when you had visitors. You gotta put their coats and cloaks somewhere. Why not next to where Steve is trying to go potty?
Number 7. Brooklyn Bridge Bootleggers. Should have been a pro hockey team. The Brooklyn Bootleggers. John Roebling designed the Brooklyn Bridge, which opened in 1883. Apparently he was able to fund the design and construction with the help of liquor vendors. Okay, I can see where this is heading. Since the anchorages of the bridges and the voids between them and the walls were neither intensely hot or freezing cold, so storing alcohol in them made sense. So Roebling rented out the caverns below the entrances to various alcohol vendors in the late 19th century. Alright, right around the time where they're like, should we make this stuff illegal? The bridge itself was built with tons of passages and compartments under it. They were actually rented out for storage, businesses, and apartments. In order to fund the $15 million to finish the bridge, elites paid up to $5,000 a year to store and cool their hooch there. Imagine during the Prohibition time too? Pretty pricey and sneaky stuff if you ask me. Number 6. Trafalgar Square Bobbies. If you're familiar with the London area, you've probably seen this. This little post office lamp post looking thing. It's actually a fully functioning police station. One of the world's smallest, actually. According to historians, it was built in 1926 so that police could be close to the protests in the busy square. Basically the first CCTV, I guess. At the end of World War I, a temporary police box outside of the Trafalgar Square station needed to be renovated, and instead, it was decided to build a less obvious, more subtle station. Something a little invisible to criminals. So they built one inside a lamppost. It was the first to actually have a mirrored interior bood light. When we went from candles to those flamethrower lights in the UK, it had a direct phone line to Scotland Yard and all. And when the phone rang, the mirrors on top spun, just like the sirens we all see on emergency vehicles today. Like a mini bat symbol almost. It's so small too. It's now used for, of course, brooms and mops. Can you imagine? Yeah, you're under arrest. Just close the door behind you, please. Thank you. Just turn around. Turn around! Number 5. St. Mark's Crypt. Beneath the presbytery and deep inside the chapel sits a crypt, one that for centuries has been the home of St. Mark himself. St. Mark's Basilica in Venice, one of the most visited churches in the world. Every day, thousands of tourists visit to admire the mosaics and marble it houses inside. A true masterpiece and celebration of art and culture. And old. In 1063, the construction of an ageless crypt to hold the remains of the evangelist Mark. The ruins of previous buildings were were transformed into a single crypt in which the new basilica would be built over top. When the body of St. Mark was found, it was placed with full honors inside this crypt and built over. In 1563, the Brotherhood moved inside the church, and in 1604, the crypt was officially sealed and closed forever. Dude, I've seen the Crypt Keeper, alright? I'm not going down there. No way, dude, are you serious? Like 1,000-year-old bones? Number 4, Club 33. I know what you're thinking. Hey Kyle, where's this rager of a nightclub located? Well, it's a little complicated. You see, it's above the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. For real. You see, we're really getting into some secretive stuff now. Club 33 is the official Disneyland members only lounge for dining and drinking. And I'm not talking like a fast pass for rides or anything. Not even the elites had memberships. It's hidden within an attraction next to Walt Disney's actual apartment. The entrance of the club was at 33 Royal Street, hence the address plate with just the number 33 on it. People never even notice the club because even if they do, the chances of being invited behind that door, it's next to slim. After Disney's death, the demand was lifted and those willing to pay a small $50,000 initiation fee and of course $15,000 annually per person are implored to visit. All that to drink like a gin and tonic out of Chip from Beauty and the Beast? Yeah, I'll pass.
Number 3, the dungeon. You knew this was gonna be here. Don't pretend to be surprised. Well, guess what? It ain't as common as you might think. And it wasn't always a deep, dank cellar in the bottom of the castle. It actually started off as a prison in the tippy top of the tallest, safest tower. Apparently, keeping people in cells wasn't actually commonplace at first. You'd probably just, you know. But hey, when they did have dungeons, then yeah, they were pretty grim. They were always put in the coldest, darkest, most moist part of the castle. And they were usually just prisons. Number 2, Oubliette. Bouncing off the dungeon is a much smaller dungeon, and hey, another hole. Yep. This one is kind of worse than a latrine though. You see, this is a hole that they would actually put people in. Imagine being put in a hole in the ground, where it was too small for you to actually sit down, with a trapdoor on top, too high to reach. That's an oubliette. The word oubliette is actually from the French word to forget, which is what they'd do. They'd put you in this hole and then forget about you to die. Lovely, right? Number 1, torture rooms. Here we are. Now how many of you weirdos came here for this one? This room is separate from the dungeons usually, not always, but it was at least not very far. Still gotta keep your prisoners cold and dark as you make them squeal for the end, right? Wow, that was dark. This was the room where you'd keep all your favorite tools of the pain trade. Stretched, hung by your ankles, fire, tools of all kind. There were trap doors in some torture rooms too that would lead to dungeons or pools of water. Some torture rooms, like those during the Inquisition, had even thicker walls to keep the screams in. Some of these torture rooms weren't used as often as they think though, as merely having a torture room was enough to get prisoners to give you what you wanted. Alright, can we move on now please? Okay.
Kicking off our list at number 10, Secret Cinderella Suite. Cinderella's castle at Disney World. Of course, it's the main attraction. Without that castle, it would just be a Canadian theme park. Of course, the castle is a smaller scale than a real medieval one, so it's a surprise to find out there's actually a real hidden suite in there. And yes, it's quite magical. You can sleep there and probably get bed bugs, I don't know. To get there, you'll need to take a pumpkin carriage elevator. And in the actual suite, you'll find 2 beds and a pull-out couch. Yeah, nothing more enchanting than a pull-out. Who gets that one? Let's draw straws. There's beautiful stained glass windows, a fireplace to keep you warm at night in Florida. But I almost forgot the most important detail. You need to be invited. Yeah, you gotta be important. You can't just buy your way in, right? Can't just get daddy's credit card and fast pass your way in that line. You gotta win a contest or something like that. I don't think I'd want to spend a night there, to be honest. It doesn't look very cozy. It's like one of those cottages you stay at and you're like, I'm scared, I'm really uncomfortable. This is a little too old for me. Number 9, DMZ. Despite what its name says and implies, the Korean Demilitarized Zone is perhaps one of the most militarized places in the entire world. It's like, hey, there's nothing going on here with military stuff. This is the location that marks the separation between North and South Korea, and it was established to serve as a sort of buffer zone between 2 countries. There are tons of military facilities in this zone, and only high-ranking officials are allowed in. You'll hopefully never see this. This is exactly what led to the creation of the Civilian Control Line, which is a line that created an additional buffer zone to the Demilitarized Zone, which is meant to further restrict access to any civilians or unauthorized personnel. So they added more of a do not enter. It's thick. You'll never see this. Number 8, Surtsey Island. This island was born in 1963, and by that I mean Literally, it emerged from the sea in that year just off the coast of Iceland after 4 years of being formed by an undersea volcano. Yeah, brand new island, nice. Happy birthday, I guess? What do we do here? What could we possibly do with a new island? Well, I'm sure humans could find 1,000,001 ways to ruin it. Like, you know, put another Cinderella suite in the middle of it probably. And surprisingly, we decided not to do that at all. Instead, this island was protected in order to allow scientists to study how ecosystems form and what happens when there's zero human involvement. That's the whole idea. Yeah, not a bad call, right? This means that those who are permitted to go to the island have some super strict rules to adhere to, right? No touchy-touchy, no spitting, no crying, there's nothing, no one should know that we've ever been here, right? One of these rules is no seeds, okay? And no using the facilities on the island, okay? No taking, okay? You gotta hold it until 6 p.m. Have fun. Don't forget to clock in. That second rule is in place because one day scientists found a tomato growing on the island. And they were quite confused as, you know, how, considering what I just told you. Yeah, it turns out somebody had gone number 2 not too long past, and then, you know, a tomato came out because he had a little seed in his own, right? You get it.
Number 7, dovecotes. You know when you walk down the street and a white colored excrement falls on you from above and you look up to see a pigeon just looking down on you as if it owns your whole existence? Imagine that, times like 2,500 in a circular tower, and you've got a dovecote. These structures actually showed off status and wealth as only the lords were legally allowed to have them. Doves and pigeons proved to be an excellent source of food with their meat and eggs. Their feathers were also valuable, and yes, even their droppings found use back in the day. Doves even had religious value, being associated with the Holy Spirit. Pigeons, on the other hand, are a menace to society and need to be stopped at all costs. Thank you for listening to my PSA. Gotcha, you little rascal. You were gonna keep watching this video without slapping that like and subscribe button, weren't you? That's fine. I guess you can do that. But gee, we would really all appreciate it if you just gave those buttons a little poke. And then we can poke back with more of these videos. Deal? Alright, moving on. Number 6, the buttery. I can't believe it's not butter. Won't believe it, sister. This has nothing to do with butter. No, in fact, the name actually comes from beer butts, otherwise known as barrels. The room itself was located pretty close to the main hall, where yeomen would serve beer to the people who were too low in the ladder to be allowed to have wine. And it was usually connected to the beer cellar down below. How is this unholy? Because, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never done a single holy thing after a few beers. Number 4, gatehouses. Now for a place with the least amount of holes. Actually, it probably had the most. The gatehouse was probably the most fortified structure in the castle. The holes we have here were for the sole purpose of hurling or shooting projectiles. Some were for traps and obstacles. The gatehouse was a house for the main weak spot of the castle, the front gate. And as such, it had to be the most defendable part of said castle. It was also usually the most lavish and ornate part of the castle. If you're inviting Lord Reginald from across the way to your castle, you want him walking through that front door thinking, hey, this guy could absolutely defend against me, but also he has impeccable taste.
Number 3, Disney's underground tunnels. Back to Disney, where dreams are made of, or something like that. In a place like Disney, there has to be room for employees to take a breather, right? That much time and character, all those high fives. I mean, I've done mascot work for a theme park before. It's hot, it's sweaty, it's gross. It's not the easiest job, but they're humans too, okay? They need to take breaks, clock in and out, all that jazz. Where does that magic happen, okay? This needs to be away from the public eye, of course. You can't have people watching as Mickey takes his head off to go for a smoke. No way, that's magic is completely ruined at that point. So instead, Disney has these hidden underground tunnels to move around the park without worrying about staying in character or getting caught in large crowds. During the early park days, Walt Disney himself saw a cowboy from Frontierland walking through Tomorrowland, and it just didn't make any sense. He's like, wait a minute, the timeline's here, he's got a hat in space, what? It took him out of the magic, right? More than fair. So he made 392,000 square feet of underground tunnels. And yes, they look as creepy as I'm describing them to be. There's zero magic in these tunnels. I mean, God, can we throw a poster up or something? Number 2, restricted Aboriginal art. While some collections are kept out of sight for museum visitors because they're, you know, extremely scandalous in nature, like One of those. Others are kept in secret rooms out of respect. We don't want people touching or messing with these things. At the National Museum of Australia, David Klaus, senior curator of the museum's Aboriginal programs, he wrote this long report explaining on the choice to hide these artifacts from history and why he does so. David himself has said, quote, "That is the responsibility of museums to respect the cultures they want to depict. The public use of Aboriginal secret and/or sacred objects is not consistent with this responsibility," end quote. He's like, yeah, because they didn't want them to be seen. It's kind of simple. In order to gain access to these restricted Aboriginal projects, these beautiful pearl shell ornaments, all these things, you need permission from traditional Aboriginal custodians. Again, no fast passing on this one. And finally, number 1, North Sentinel Island. Heading over to India, this island is the home of the Sentinelese tribe, one of the most forbidden islands in the world. But why is that? Well, it's located in the Bay of Bengal. North Sentinel Island is about 1,200 kilometers away from India, okay? It's pretty far out. And while most islands are shrinking or coming out of nowhere, this one actually grew back in 2004. The island lifted up a couple of meters during an earthquake, so the west and south sides gained an extra kilometer, which is pretty useful because the inhabitants on this floating cursed island are among the few uncontacted tribes left in the world. They have apparently been there for thousands of years. There's no sign of agriculture or even fire, yet somehow this tribe has continued to thrive. If we try and get close, they try and drive anybody away. In fact, sadly, back in 2006, 2 fishermen lost their lives because they got too close to the island without knowing who was on it. The Indian government didn't roll up to the beach and start interrogating locals and taking names. Hey, who did that? No, instead, it's now forbidden to go to the island. We're just gonna respectfully leave it be. Number 10, Medici Chapels. This one begins with an epic discovery. Back in 1975, the director of the Medici Chapels Museum in Florence, Italy, he was searching for a new exit route for visitors. He was trying to expand whilst controlling traffic a little more. We love that, we love big moves. Now, in doing so, the director stumbled across this trap door beneath a closet. And there also lied a few clues on the walls. There were sketches and drawings, the style of which seemed to belong to one Leonardo da Vinci. Not a bad find at all, my friends. This room was immediately closed for renovations. It was held a secret until 2020, so for many this is still widely unknown. I hope you've learned a thing or two already on this list. We're not even at number 9 yet, and you already know about some ancient trapdoors in Italy. There you go. Number 9. Metro 2. During the time where Stalin was in power, it's said that he instructed that an underground secret transport system would be built. It was known as Metro 2. This mysterious underground system is said to connect different administrative institutions, and it's even rumored that it contains apartments and different technical rooms. It's an underground city, basically. I don't know how to tell you that. It's sort of like a secret escape tunnel for high-level officials, right? Now, of course, it's completely blocked off to outsiders or the general public, and while the Moscow Metro administration denies that these tunnels even exist, there was an urban exploration group back in 1994 that claimed to have found the entrance. At this point in time, only one metro exists. On paper. We'll go find the other one, right? We can go find it, some flashlights, maybe a spare weekend. We'll get to the bottom of it. Number 8, Whaley House. Located in San Diego and built in 1857, the Whaley House is an example of, why you don't build your house on cursed land. The site that this family home was built on was also the location of San Diego's first public gallows. Now, what a fun fact that is. Nice, rich history here. And apparently right after moving in, Thomas Whaley said he himself could hear the footsteps of Yankee Jim Robinson, who had previously lost his life in the same gallows only 4 years prior. After the family had settled in, they experienced a bunch of family tragedies, most of which actually happened inside of the house, hence the, cursed land aspect. As of today, the Whaley House is now a museum, and apparently the family members continue to haunt said site. Number 7, Ed and Lorraine Warren's Occult Museum. Okay, heading into Spookyville for this one. If you've seen Annabelle Comes Home, this next one should ring a bell. The character Daniela in the movie, she tries to communicate to a loved one beyond the grave, but in order to do so, she puts on a bracelet from Ed and Lorraine's Occult Museum. It's called a mourning bracelet. It's kind of like the Q-ray bracelet, but does the opposite things, makes you cursed instead of smart. Now, there isn't a mourning bracelet in the real life occult museum, but there is such thing as the pearls of death. And those are locked away, those are very real, those are lovely too, might I add. These pearls were added to the museum after a woman claimed they were strangling her on its own, which is absolutely terrifying. It's like those candy necklaces that we had growing up, and they'd get tight all of a sudden, you're like, oh my god. The second this poor woman put these pearls on, she needed everybody around her to help yank them from her neck. Now these haunted pearls sit in the Ed and Lorraine Occult Museum. These ones have nothing on Martha Wayne, oh lord. Number 6, Naples' secret adult room. Scandalous Pompeii excavations. Ancient Playboy, here we go, this one's pretty funny. After the eruption of Mount Vesuvius back in 79 AD, the small city of Pompeii was sadly covered in hot ash. The ancient Roman ruins are still being uncovered today, but back in the 1700s, most of the city was excavated for the first time. And the King of Naples got the best of the best, right? First dibs! Most of the contents are now kept in the Archaeological Museum in Naples, but some have to be held in the secret room. Yeah, see, in the past, you had to receive permission from the king to take a peek into this sensual art. There were 30 brothels in Pompeii, so of course, surrounding artwork served as advertisement for said brothels, if anything. Just old drawings or carvings of people intertwined with one another. Yo, I found Dad's stash! Number 5. Svalbard Seed Vault. Deep within a mountain that sits in between Norway and the North Pole sits this vault that is more than 320 feet deep. It's just hidden inside of a mountain, okay? This vault holds a massive collection of seeds. It'd be the worst case for that other island, eh? They're like, no, keep this vault away, please, none of those. The vault that holds these seeds are made to withstand both man-made and natural disasters. And the seeds held inside are meant to be kept safe, so that in the case of sort of, a huge disaster or the end of the world arrives, seeds will be fine. Yeah, we're good, just some watermelon seeds will make it, but we're all doomed. Sick. The seeds kept safe inside would ensure the continuation of a wide variety of diverse food options in case things go south, you know what I mean? The door to this vault is only open a few times a year and just a few people are allowed inside in order to deliver seeds to their shelves. Yeah, just a doomsday vault full of seeds, that's great. Now I'm nervous. Number 4, Snake Island. This island's located in Brazil and it's one of the most dangerous in the entire world. Because of the name I just gave you, it's full of snakes. I don't think I have to explain this one. It is thought that Snake Island came to be when the snakes got trapped as a result of the rising sea levels, which then disconnected the island from the mainland, and then all these snakes got stuck here, and now it's just full of snakes. This is so horrible. The reason people aren't allowed to visit is obviously to protect humans who don't want to go and get attacked by thousands of snakes, but also to protect the snakes from thousands of humans, because we're pretty shitty as well. Just like anywhere else in the world, because of the lack of human interference, they're striving. It's actually a healthy, beautiful island. That's what the snakes said, not me. I don't like snakes, but the snakes seem to like it. They're having a great time together. It's like Survivor season 58, just snakes. There's a critically endangered species of snake called a golden lancehead on this island. There's about 4,000 of them, which is, of course, critical to the species continuing on. So let's not touch it. Let's not poke any snakes. Let them live. As of now, only a few select researchers and the Brazilian Navy, of course, are permitted to go to the island. Number 3, hidden Mickeys. I had some hidden Mickeys myself growing up, but these ones are a little bit different. We'll make it a little brighter now before we get to our top 3. Here we go. But Walt Disney himself said, "I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse." I got to thinking, which mouse, Stuart Little, the mouse with an ear on its back, that's iconic, or Mickey Mouse, the iconic 3 circles, right? If you're visiting Disney Orlando anytime soon, first of all, have fun, mad FOMO. Second of all, keep an eye open for the hundreds of Mickey Mouse symbols. They're hidden on the walls, the floors, paintings. It's actually kind of creepy. No one knows how many there are. In total, there's rumored to be over 1,000 hidden Mickeys. How many did you find? Maybe like 4 or 5, I bet. Probably hard to see. And finally, number 1, the secret bowling alley. Okay, we'll end this list on a fun note because it's the weekend, okay? It's Saturday, we're all out here having a good time. The Frick Collection resides on the former home of Henry Frick. This is on Manhattan's Upper East Side. A handful of you have probably seen it or have been there. We have like the CN Tower and an aquarium. I'm like, we don't have any cool museums. This collection is a museum in itself. It contains paintings, sculptures, furniture, all historical, mind you, and all made from European artists as far back as the 13th century. The mansion itself is rather new. That was built in 1913, and of course it was also used as the Frick's family resident at one point. A rich family in the early 1900s. Nice, you already know there's a lot of secret rooms in there. But what was hiding in there? Apparently some fun rich family stuff, not a lot of curses. Like for example, a 2-lane bowling alley that was built in 1914. That's fun, we like that. Or a secret billiards room. Again, we like that as well. A wood shop, a little creepy, we'll kind of skip past that one. But how about this tiny diner? So good, we love secret stuff. I don't know, any secret? That sounds a little hollow there. I'm gonna check that out after work. Something's afoot back there.
Number 10, the Rushmore Room. Built by Gutzon Borglum, 1925, this chamber behind Abraham Lincoln's third eye was meant to hold documents and artifacts most significant to what makes America, America. Yeah, not country music and muscle cars, of course, but like the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, the important stuff. At first, the idea was a huge inscription to be carved under the figures. It would describe the 9 most important events in US history from 1777 to 1906, basically Washington to Roosevelt. They realized it wouldn't be big enough to read, so they thought up this new plan: dig out a secret room within the mountain for the records to live. A list of famous Americans and contributions to the world of science, industry, and art, all in one spot. Unfortunately, Borglum passed away before it was completed, and World War II started, halting construction. The unfinished hall houses 16 panels within a teak wood box, within a titanium vault, within a granite casing. Of course, not accessible to the public. Yeah. Secret stuff. Vault within a vault type stuff, huh? Okay. Number 9. Eiffel's apartment. When Gustav Eiffel designed the tower, drawn into the plans, he included a very subtle, very private little apartment for himself at the very top. I mean, why not, right? Imagine that view. When he passed in 1923, he left the place in mint condition. All of his furnishings exactly where he left them. Today, the apartment houses only mannequins of Eiffel himself. He's just like washing the dishes, you know what I mean? He's just like... Apparently tons of people would offer up literally a small fortune to rent the private room for just a single night, but Eiffel always refused. Apparently only Thomas Edison was granted access for, quote, logical thinking. Dude, this place is awesome. I wonder if he had bugs, you know? Like if it had an elevator, it had bugs. Hundo P. This place is also like 8 times bigger than every university house I lived in. Like look at that ceiling height. This place is beautiful. Number 8. Library apartments. If you've seen Good Will Hunting, you're gonna love this next one. Apparently there's more than just bookworms that live at the library. When libraries were built in New York more than a century ago, they needed people to take care of them. These buildings were often heated by coal. Library custodians, along with their families, used to live inside small hidden apartments located above, under, and behind lots of New York public libraries. Today, of course, these secret apartments are either remodeled into storage closets or offices. Dude, can you imagine? Libraries closed, just bored, wandering down to find a new book every day? Like you'd be a genius. That's like free school right there. I'd definitely be riding the trolleys all day long though, you know? Just like riding the ladders across the walls. There's only like a dozen of these secret libraries that still exist in New York. I'm surprised this isn't a Netflix or TLC series called I Grew Up in a Library.
Number 7. Lake Acid. Nice, a nice acid lake to cool off. It's also referred to as the gateway to hell. Rightfully so. The Danakil Depression is made up of boiling hot ponds that release chlorine and sulfur gases into the air. So you don't even have to take a dip in this acid lake. Just standing around it can simply kill you. So where does something like this come from, besides science fiction horror films? How does a lake of acid just come to be? What did we do to you to deserve an acid lake, my friend? This horrifying landscape is the result of 3 continental plates being torn apart. Yeah, it's part of the East African Rift System. So not 1, but 2 active volcanoes surround the Danakil Depression, hence the, bubbling magma lurking below the dry landscape. That explains it. 2 volcanoes. It's one of the hottest places on Earth for a reason. Active hydrothermal ozones aren't new per se, that's what Yellowstone National Park is, but you need a gas mask to go to this park, so we'll stick to Yellowstone for now. Number 5, flesh-eating beetle room. Okay, enough talk about ancient butts. Let's move on to some weird stuff again, shall we? In Chicago's Field Museum, this one's chock full of secret rooms. I feel sick immediately just reading about this. The Field Museum uses hide beetles to clean its specimens. Real beetles to eat the stuff. Yeah, in order to get each of these carcasses ready for showtime, these beetles are on the clock. They're business oriented. They come in just a few hours, a small rodent can be completely cleaned. Nothing but bones left. How gross is that? Imagine this is where Peter Parker got his powers. Ugh, that'd be a different movie. Or Night at the Museum. That would also be a very different movie if it took place in here, in the old beetle room. Number 4, Vatican secrets. The archives, first of all, they're 53 miles long. There's around 35,000 volumes of secret catalog. The Vatican's secret archives are no joke. They're very real, but in order to see them for yourselves, it's gonna take some time. A lot of time. We don't have any time, really. The codexes aren't public, hence why I'm including them. Only highly respected scholars can access it after they're 75 years old, so you gotta wait a few birthdays. Their official purpose is to house the Holy See's official paperwork, and of course, it's a treasure trove of anything and everything related to the Pope, as well as these long lost ancient documents, because where else do you safely store a letter from Mary Queen of Scots? The archives, that's where. Dudes are out here hucking cakes at the Mona Lisa. Yeah, we're gonna keep ancient notes locked up, I think. Humans can't be trusted, at least till after you're 75, and then it's like, okay, go take a look. There's also a secret room that contains the 200-foot Tower of the Winds, only accessible by these secret archives, so yeah. There's a lot of cool shit. down there.
Number 3, Lake Erie. Lake Erie is harboring a huge ancient secret and has been for the past million years, which not a lot of people know about. I didn't even know about this until today. Something absolutely massive under the water was found. And it's not Bessie or those freshwater dinosaurs. It's salt. Yeah, lakes aren't salt water, Kyle. No, but they most certainly are. See, underneath Lake Erie is a highway-long salt mine. And I say highway long because, like, you need to merge and, like, signal down there. It's so big. The Salina Formation is the source of rock salt beneath Cleveland. It's located at the bottom of a 1,500-foot thick section of limestone bordering 11 counties under Lake Erie. Every day, the 5-mile wide mine gets even bigger. Football field by football field as crew sticks explosives in the walls and blasts the salt loose. Dude, for real? I'm shook right now. Just think, next time you're fishing, just think at the bottom of that, yeah, there's trucks and a highway under there. Huh? Number 2, hotel tracks. Track 61 is an abandoned Metro North station located under the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York City. What makes this place spookier than New York City's other abandoned train stations is the fact that it's right under such a famous and bustling hotel you would never even know. Only accessible by one locked door on 49th Street and using private rusted elevators. Dude, I'm picturing the Batcave right now. Like, for real, right? I'm disappointed. Like, whoever owns this hotel, if you're not Batman right now, what a waste. Apparently President Roosevelt would even use this track back in the day for protection when visiting New York City during World War II. They built special elevators so that presidents could drive in and out with cars right up onto the train. Okay, again, we're sure Roosevelt wasn't Batman, right? Like, cause like this is the Batcave, right? And number 1, Drum Castle. In 2013, archaeologists came across something that people apparently have missed for like the last hundreds of years. A secret medieval chamber and bathroom under one of Europe's oldest castles. Drum Castle, Scotland. It lies in Aberdeen and was built in the 1200s. It was gifted to William de Irwine in 1325 by Robert the Bruce himself. While working on a conservation project for Scotland's oldest kept castle, a wee tiny room was found perfectly preserved, equipped with the original toilet seat and all. Dr. Jonathan Clark from the FAS Heritage led the excavation. Trapped for centuries, a secret medieval chamber. The archaeologists then also discovered a second hidden chamber in the same tower, which, legend says, is where Mary Irvine hid her brother for 3 years after defeat in Battle of Culloden. Yeah, English versus Scots. That was a scary time, you know? People getting stretched to death and stuff. Gross.